Namibia needs me and Namibia needs you. Welcome to the podcast that breaks down the current affairs and why it should matter to you. We chat about real impact, no fluff, no fillers. So let's get into it. Good morning, Janona. How are you?
Blessed and well. How are you, Ethne?
Very well, thank you.
Good. So we have a good line of stories today. Very, very interesting. So much has happened over the course of the week. So basically, we start with the sulfuric acid production. Very interesting story. Economically, we are looking good. And then the arms struggle from state institutions looking into some of the weaponry from Namibia that got into South Africa. Tragic. And then, of course, last but not least, we have the resumption of the parliamentary session that started on the Wednesday last week, and basically a very interesting development that happened on the first day. Let's take them in that order.
Shall we? All right, so we start with sulfuric acid.
Yes.
Sounds a little boring to most of us. What's exciting about sulfuric acid? But in fact, quite an exciting development that we are busy producing our own sulfuric acid. It is an important component in mining.
Yeah.
Who knew? But we are importing quite a lot of sulfuric acid, and so if we can produce our own, that changes things in great ways. How does it change our lives when Namibia is producing sulfuric acid, Janola?
So basically, and I think this is also one thing that a lot of young people don't really understand. So when we talk about these kinds of raw minerals and things like that, what these things are actually used for is never really spoken about. So sulfuric acid is such a huge industry player because you do detergents with it, you do pickling with it. Pickling is basically when you're removing rust from metals. It's used in the harvesting of potatoes, it's used in soaps, it's used in different dyes and many other kinds of acids, even in the production of paper in itself, right?
Okay, so if we are producing our own sulfuric acid, it benefits our own beneficiation.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about beneficiation? Why is it such an important word that we're hearing more of?
Because with the export of this kind of mineral, it will bring in more revenue. Like for instance, if we are exporting to different countries around the world, we are able to benefit from the revenue created from such an export.
Not only that, we need sulfuric acid. We're busy importing sulfuric acid
at the moment, yeah.
So instead of importing, we're able to produce it ourselves. That benefits us because we have local industries that then grow as a result of our extractive industries. And that really benefits us.
And even our economy, because that way you will have certain things that become cheaper, people that will get employed, because now this is now the emerging industry, which is good because the Green Metals Refining announced that they plan to invest 59 million into this endeavor so that the facility that will produce the sulfuric acid can, kickstart.
Okay. Yeah. And this idea of economic sovereignty, how does this tie into that notion of economic sovereignty?
I think the idea is that as a country, if we are able to produce more, we are able to export more. And if we export more, it means we rely less on other countries' ability to give us stuff, therefore making us economically self-reliant. And that is very, very important for any nation.
Okay, but also just not having to import means that we can rely on our own local supply chain, and that makes us less susceptible to global fluctuations in the prices of things like sulfuric acid. So when we have a big need for sulfuric acid, but globally the prices go way up, we just have to pay it unless we can make our own. And that makes our local industry stronger.
But even more daunting is that let's say we import a particular thing from our neighbors and then they have an argument with Donald Trump. He slaps them with tariffs and therefore they charge us more in terms of that item. So it is also important that if we produce our own things, we are not, we won't be disadvantaged by any kind of tariffs that are imposed on a country that we're importing a particular item from.
I mean, what I understand from global economics is that those tariffs have so many varied implications in so many varied ways. But I think that was a key word that you were saying was being self-reliant. Being able to benefit from those resources that we already have. We have so many resources. We're such a resource-rich country, but we're at the mercy of global prices when we have to export it raw, and we can't do anything much with it here to add value to it. But when we can add value to it, because we make our own sulfuric acid, it changes the game significantly.
I think maybe my last point on that
Yes.
that subject is that recently I went to the north over the weekend.
Yes.
And I saw something very interesting.
Okay.
A sack of 10 kg potatoes
Yes.
cost 70 Namibian dollars.
Wow.
That costed me 120 Namibian dollars in window.
Yes.
This is just to tell you that after transport, rates and taxes has dealt with a particular product, you would pay $40 more on an item. Similar to importing something. By the time that they've imposed all these different fees and levies on a particular item, you, the consumer, ends up paying more. Now, the reason it's cheaper in the north is because it's literally was produced right next to the market. So transport costs are already cut out and things like that. So that was for me a very practical example of the importance of actually producing something yourself. Therefore, you get to spend far less on it than you would seeing that we're already importing it from outside.
Love it. So if we are exporting uranium and instead of importing the sulfuric acid needed to get that uranium onto market value, we can make our own sulfuric acid. It makes the price of the uranium we get to sell cheaper to produce, more expensive
to sell,
and we can sell it at a higher price.
Higher price, exactly. Yeah.
I loved your example of the potatoes to get to that.
So expect a breakdown of key policy issues, latest news on contemporary social issues that are currently happening in Namibia, and for us to create a very interesting story around that with a core aim of having you involved and showing you how you can meaningfully contribute to your society. The Global Initiative report revealed that Namibian police and military weapons, firearms, have been found in the Western Cape of South Africa amongst gangs. So some gang members were caught with guns that were supplied from the Namibian police and the Namibian army, basically. Ethnic. Before I share my thoughts, please, you want to say something?
No, I guess what really matters for our civic education program is understanding something as common as just the rule of law. So if you and I are obligated to keep very strict regulations around our gun control, such as the imperative to keep your gun in a safe and make very sure that no one who's unauthorized ever has access to our guns, then that rule applies equally, if not more so, to state institutions like the police and the army, who also have to take extreme measures, not extreme measures, just sufficient measures to keep their guns safe and to ensure that their guns do not end up harming people inadvertently. Those are arms intended to protect us. So the only reason we give the state money and allow the state to use that money to buy guns that could hurt us is on the premise that they will never let it hurt us. And that is what has happened.
Yeah, actually, let me just put it very bluntly. It was very negligent of the Namibian police and the army to allow such a thing, that weapons are being illegally used to harm citizens in another country that were smuggled out of Namibia, that were supposed to be in their possession. Like, Ethne, do you know that if you are a gun owner in Namibia, you must by law have a safe where you keep this gun? And if you don't, you are again in contravention of the law. You could be arrested for negligence, of leaving a dangerous weapon exposed like that. Now, how much more should the state, who is supposed to enforce these laws, exercise that kind of safety? That
Absolutely.
Their weapons are found being used by gangs in South Africa.
And it didn't end up being used by gangs accidentally.
Yes.
Firstly, if it were just an accident, it would be atrocious enough. But it was bought.
Yeah.
And that's even worse.
Even worse.
And so this speaks to a lack of checks and balances. And we need sufficient checks and balances for things like this not to happen. For us
internally, yes.
For us to have trust in our institutions. And so this is a real knock.
Yeah. I don't think, luckily the article also reports that Namibian police have arrested some suspects that are linked to the theft, which is good, so that genuinely they can pay for it, because people always have a way of doing the wrong thing, even when there are certain kinds of measures, but it is important that the rule of law applies even to police or state officials, that they can pay for some gruesome acts, like that.
This podcast is designed for engaged citizens, curious minds, and anyone who just wants to get a better understanding of what's going on in Namibia. If that sounds like you, subscribe.
All right.
So Parliament resumes their second session, and there's a furore. Tell us a little bit about it. AR members get dragged out of Parliament.
Yes, I don't know. I don't know how many of you saw. I'm sure you saw, Ethne, that there are a lot of videos going viral. A video of Job Amupanda, a video of Kalola himself, and then a video of some members of Parliament who were also contributing on the issue. So what recently happened was that the speaker, the session was going on in Parliament, and one particular MP was given the floor to speak, but Honorable Kalora rose on a point of order, on a point of privilege. Now, just for those of us to understand, as per the standing rules of Parliament, you are allowed to interrupt the speaker and another member if you raise on a point of order. Because a point of order is there to, first of all, establish a premise that would then, continue the exercise of the parliamentary activity. So that is why it was very important for him to raise on that point of order. But our speaker decided not to recognize that point
Sorry,
of order.
if I may interrupt you, just
Yes, please.
because that sounded very complicated to me, and I've just gone through it with you. So if I were to try to put that in more layman's terms, I think it was the fact that members of the AR, political party, have repeatedly not adhered to the dress code of Parliament by wearing jeans instead of wearing formal pants.
Yeah.
And the speaker decided that this time she was not going to
recognize them. Yeah.
She was not going to just let it slide anymore, but actually ask them to leave Parliament.
Yeah.
And when they refused, she asked them to be physically removed from Parliament for wearing jeans.
Yes. Initially, when she said she was not going to recognize him for his point of order, she said, "I'm not going to recognize somebody that is wearing jeans," which is, in essence, a violation of the standing rules. But again...
What do you mean by that? Is it a violation to wear jeans, or is it a violation to not let someone speak because of what they're wearing?
Oh, it's a violation to wear jeans.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most important thing is that members of Parliament are representatives of people, very importantly. And I know there's a thin line between doing the right thing versus actually us re-looking something that is inconsequential, because the important thing is that people are represented very, very well. Because we come from a very traditional society. Even if you're a Himba, you can, be in Parliament. But the decorum in Parliament...
What do you mean by even if you're a Himba? You mean even non-Western customary dress should be honoured and respected anywhere in Namibia, especially so in Parliament.
Exactly, okay. Because that is my feeling, that what you're wearing should not be used as a reason to
exclude
or silence you and the people that you represent, in essence. And I fully understand that the speaker does have a point in terms of the dressing, but how the matter was used as a way to enforce that discipline was not right. It could have been done in an email prior to the engagement, seeing that she mentioned that this has been ongoing, or it didn't need to go that far, because these are elected representatives. They are not there because they were appointed because of someone that liked them, but they were there because some Namibians out there voted them and put them in office. So I think maybe this is one of those situations, Ethne, where we should relook if the laws that we have and the internal policies that we have really work for our society. And I mean, we are in Africa. We are very cultural people. We are very traditional people. So where you come from and what you choose to wear should not mean you can be silenced. Yeah.
An interesting debate, and I hope it carries us forward into greater democracy and greater agency for all of us, even opposition parties, even minority people, and I'd like to say especially so, we should be able to speak truth to power, and we should be able to have dissent. Otherwise, can we really call ourselves a democracy? Another joyful discussion with you, Janola. I hope that our discussions are able to break down things that can be a little bit complex and can be a little bit inaccessible, and make them just really simple to understand, and something that you can all talk about with your friends and family. All
right, until next time.
Thanks, Janola. Bye.
Please subscribe, join the conversation as we explore different stories that are currently happening in our country.